The wind howled across the battlefield, carrying smoke and the bitter scent of burning metal. Ashes fell like snow over ruined stone walls and shattered weapons. The girl lay on her side, half covered in blood and dust, her breathing shallow and broken. She was not just any girl, she was of the royal line of the Ureth, the last hope of her people. And now they laughed at her pain. The arena wasn't made for mercy. Metal spikes lined the edge, and the crowd, a mix of alien elites and mercenaries, roared for more blood. In the center, she tried to crawl forward, leaving a trail of red behind her. Her pale violet skin was torn, her armor cracked, and one eye swollen shut. Yet they kept laughing. The ones who betrayed her. The ones who promised alliance but sold her to monsters for sport. The fire pits around the arena flared higher, casting red light on her ruined form. She raised her hand once. More, trembling, as if reaching for something. But nothing came, no help, no mercy. Only the cruel chant of the audience above. "Let her bleed," they shouted. "The noble brat deserves it." Her name was Lyra of the Flame Crest, and now she was nothing but a toy in their cruel games. Among the crowd stood a man in black armor, human, silent, watching. He hadn't cheered or laughed. He didn't hold a drink or place bets like the others. He simply stared at her through the smoke. His name was Jack Corvain, and he wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't part of the game. He didn't belong in this galaxy at all. But somehow, he was here, and something in his eyes was burning. One of the beasts stepped into the arena, long claws dragging across the floor. It snarled, sniffed the air, then turned its yellow gaze toward the bleeding girl. The crowd shouted louder. This was what they wanted. Blood. Screams. Death. Lyra pushed her body up again, pain shooting through her chest. She didn't have the strength to run. She only had enough to meet death with open eyes. The beast charged. Dust rose with its steps. She closed her eyes, not out of fear, but because she accepted it. Her people had abandoned her. Her guards betrayed her. She had no weapons, no strength, no hope. But the strike never came. The ground shook and a burst of flame rose between her and the beast. Something slammed into the arena floor like thunder. When she opened her eyes, the human stood between her and the monster. Jack held a jagged steel rod glowing with heat. His face was grim, his stance wide, his boots pressed into the cracked ground. Fire danced around him like a cloak. The crowd went silent. They did not expect this. No one did. Not even her. No human had ever stepped into the pit uninvited. None ever dared. The beast roared and lunged. Jack didn't move. He waited, then ducked and drove the rod into the creature's gut. The impact sounded like iron splitting stone. The monster howled. Flames from the human's weapon scorched its skin. With a second strike, Jack forced it back. Blood sprang across the sand. Lyra tried to speak, but her voice was lost. Her vision blurred. Her heart thudded in confusion and awe. The fire pits around the arena exploded higher, responding to Jack's fury. His presence was not natural to this place. It was like the fire itself obeyed him. As the beast fell back, limping, the crowd began to shout not in joy, but in fear. Who was this human? Why was he glowing with power? How did he walk through fire like it welcomed him? They did not know his name, but they would soon remember it. Jack turned his head slightly, looking at Lyra for the first time up close. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the noise of the crowd disappeared. There was something in her broken stare, something more than pain. There was shame. She hated being saved. She hated being seen like this, yet Jack didn't speak. He didn't insult her or look away. He only knelt beside her and gently lifted her off the burning ground. No more pain, he whispered, though she barely heard him. He wrapped his arms around her carefully. The fire around him did not burn her. It moved aside like it knew she belonged there. She felt warmth, not just of flame, but of something stronger. For the first time in days, she felt protected. Yet her body still trembled as he carried her toward the edge of the arena. Guards shouted. Blasters were raised. The crowd moved, but Jack didn't stop. He walked through it all, through the fire, through the weapons, through the fear. One guard tried to stop him. The fire reached out and swallowed the man whole. Jack didn't look back. Another tried. The steel rod flew from Jack's hand and struck the guard in the chest. One by one, the path cleared as the human walked forward with the broken alien girl in his arms. They had laughed as she bled. But now they were silent as he walked. The alarms echoed across the black towers of Vernax Prime. Lights blinked red as gates locked shut, but the human kept walking. Jack held Lyra close to his chest, her body limp and weak. The fires still danced around him, lighting the path as if the world itself had parted for his will. The guards who once mocked her now trembled, unsure if this man was beast or god. No one knew how he got inside. The arena was protected by shields, scanners, guards, and machines. Yet Jack Corvain had walked through fire and steel as if none of it mattered. Behind him, the beast still lay dead. The crowd watched in silence, fear stealing their voices. The noble houses didn't move. The mercenaries didn't breathe. He had broken their game, and worse, he didn't care about their rules. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. The world swam around her, and her blood still dripped onto his armor. She saw his face above hers. Strong jaw, calm eyes, but no crown, no badge. He wasn't part of her people. Not even part of this world. Her voice was faint, but she asked one question. Why? Jack didn't answer right away. His grip stayed firm, his step steady. Then he whispered low, because no one else did. The arena's doors burst open, and fire trailed behind him like shadows fleeing the sun. He stepped into the steel corridors where armored soldiers aimed rifles at him. Energy blasts flew through the air, but none reached him. The flames bent, twisted, swallowed them. One by one, the soldiers fell or dropped their weapons. Jack didn't even glance their way. His eyes were fixed on the path ahead. Stop him. Someone screamed. Over the comes. He's taking the prisoner. But no one dared get close. Jack wasn't shouting. He wasn't running. He simply walked, and the world moved to let him pass. Lyra felt something strange through her pain. Not just safety, not just heat. She felt shame again, but mixed with wonder. How could a single human, unknown and unarmed, do what her army failed to do? Why did he come for her when her own people had not? They reached the landing bay. Black steel and silver crafts lined the hangar. Jack didn't stop. A gunship stood ready, still warm from the engine's core. No one touched it, yet it powered up. Its doors slid open with a hiss. Jack carried her in and laid her gently on a medical bench. His fingers moved over alien controls like he'd done it 100 times. The ship rose into the sky as the bay doors tried to close against it. Explosions rocked the towers. Sirens screamed across the city. The crowd scattered like insects under fire. The noble lords sent hunters, ships, drones, but the flames behind Jack's ship swallowed them all. He didn't even fire back. The ship moved through burning skies like a comet falling in reverse. And through it all, he watched her, checked her pulse, pressed soft gel on her wounds, cleaned the blood from her face, gently, carefully, like she mattered. When Lyra finally found enough strength to sit up, she stared at the controls, and then at him. "Who are you?" she asked. Jack leaned back in the pilot chair, fingers steady on the flight screen. "Just a man," he said. "One who's tired of watching good people bleed while monsters clap." She blinked, confused. "You knew me?" "Didn't have to," he replied, looking her way. "I saw what they did to you. That was enough. She didn't know how to respond. Her body ached, and her pride was crushed. Yet something deeper stirred inside her. A feeling she hadn't known since childhood. Trust and confusion. She was supposed to be dead by now. The crowd had paid for her suffering. The beasts were meant to end her life. Yet here she was rescued not by soldiers or kings, but by a stranger with fire in his veins. The ship broke through the planet's clouds and into cold space. Stars blinked across the black. Lyra leaned her head back and stared at the ceiling. Her eyes heavy but open. "They'll come after you," she said. "They'll hunt us both." Jack didn't flinch. Let them. He tapped a few keys, and the ship entered jump prep. "I've been hunted before. It never ends well for them." Her lips parted in a soft breath. "You're not normal." "No," he agreed, "but neither are you." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Jack stood up and walked to the side cabinet. He pulled a small scanner from the shelf and handed it to her. "Check your skin. Check your eyes. The fire didn't burn you. It protected you." Lyra's heart skipped. She ran the scanner down her arm. The reading glowed green. She stared, then stared harder. The fire had left no scars. Not on her skin, not on her bones. It should have melted her flesh, but instead it healed. Jack sat down beside her again and said quietly, "There's something in you too. That's why they tried to break you. Not because you were weak, but because they feared what would happen if you rose again." And for the first time since the betrayal, her hands stopped shaking. The ship drifted through deep space, far from the burning towers of Vernax Prime. Inside, the silence was strange. No screams. No laughter. Just the soft hum of engines and the gentle crackle of heat coils. Lyra sat near the med bench, her wounds wrapped, her strength slowly returning. She watched Jack from across the room. He stood by the window, arms crossed, eyes locked on the stars. She had so many questions, but none felt safe. Who was he? Why had the fire obeyed him? Why did it touch her without burning? Jack hadn't explained. He just flew. He fixed her wounds. He gave her water and warmth and safety. And now he stood silent, like a man carrying a weight no one else could see. Finally, she rose, wincing at the pain in her side. She walked up to him. "You said the fire protected me." Jack didn't turn. "Yes, why?" He looked at her now. His eyes weren't hard, just tired. "Because it knows who you are, just like it knew me." Lyra frowned. "I don't understand." Jack nodded. "You don't need to, not yet. But you will soon." She stepped back. "I was supposed to die there." "They made sure of it," he said. "They turned your people against you. Paid them, threatened them, lied to them. You were never the enemy. You were the warning they didn't want to face." Lyra's hands clenched. "My own guards left me to rot." Jack turned toward her fully. "They feared your gift. So they chose gold over honor." Lyra felt her throat tighten. Her mother's crown had meant nothing. Her royal blood, once a symbol of power, had become a target. But the fire hadn't rejected her. It had embraced her. And this human, a stranger from a distant world, had done what her own kind would not. He had saved her, bled for her, burned for her. And now he told her she was more than they ever let her believe. "What do you know about me?" she asked. "More than they told you," Jack answered. "Your ancestors weren't just rulers. They were flame bearers. The last ones who could call the fire, not with machines, but with their will." Lyra's eyes widened. "That's a myth." "No," Jack said. "It's truth. A truth buried by those who wanted control. If people like you rise again, they lose everything." Her legs felt weak, and she sat back down slowly. "How do you know all this?" Jack walked to a small locker and pulled out a worn metal disc. He tossed it to her. She caught it and turned it over. It had her family's crest on one side and strange, glowing symbols on the other. "That was stolen from your father's tomb," he said. "By those same traitors." "I stole it back." She stared at it. It pulsed softly, warm in her hands. It's real?" "It's part of your blood," Jack said. "Part of what they fear. That's why they locked you in chains and threw you to beasts. Not to kill you, but to erase you from history." Lyra gritted her teeth. They almost did. Jack stepped closer. "But you're still here." The moment was broken by a sharp beep from the ship's console. Jack moved fast, reading the signals. "Tracking drones," he muttered. "3 of them, Vernak's elite. They're coming in fast." Lyra stood quickly. "We can outrun them, right?" "No," Jack said calmly. "They're faster. But we don't need to run." He pressed a switch. "We let them come close. Then we show them what we really are." Lyra's heart pounded. The fire around her had faded, but she still felt it inside. A quiet heat in her chest, not pain power. She looked down at the crest. Disk again. It glowed brighter as the drones neared. She stood beside Jack as he opened the weapons panel. "You ever use a flame blade?" he asked. She shook her head. "Good," he said. "Now's the time to learn." He handed her a short metal handle. She held it tightly. He tapped a hidden switch, and the blade burst into life. Not steel, but living fire shaped into a sword. Lyra gasped. The weapon didn't burn her. It hummed with the same warmth she'd felt in the arena. "It knows you," Jack said. "Let it guide your hand." The ship trembled as the first drone fired. Shields flared. Jack pressed controls. The ship flipped hard, dodging blasts. Lyra held on, trying not to fall. Jack fired back, sending streaks of flame into the dark. One drone exploded in a burst of light. The other 2 circled fast, weaving through space. "Get ready," Jack called. "They'll try to board us," and they did. With a sudden thud, one drone locked onto the hull. A hiss of steam, a groan of metal, and enemy soldiers poured inside. Black armor, sharp rifles, red visors. They expected fear. What they got instead was fire. Jack moved like a storm. His weapon blazed, cutting down the first wave. Then Lyra stepped forward. She raised the flame blade, her hands trembling but steady. And when she struck, the fire answered. Her blade sliced through armor like paper. The heat burned only enemies. Her eyes glowed gold for a moment. One soldier fell screaming, another ran. Jack glanced back at her, blood on his cheek. "You're remembering," he said. And she was. She remembered who she was before the betrayal. The flames faded only after the last soldier fell. The air was thick with smoke and burned metal. Lyra stood in the middle of the wrecked hallway, her hands still holding the glowing flame blade. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, but her arms didn't shake anymore. She had killed. Not out of rage, but out of purpose. Her blade hadn't wavered, and the fire had guided her every strike. Jack watched her quietly from the side. Blood stained his armor, but his eyes held pride. Not the kind a warrior gives to another fighter. It was the pride of someone who had seen a spark grow into fire. He stepped beside her and took the blade from her hands. "You did well," he said. "You let the flame speak." Lyra turned her face away, her voice quiet. "It didn't hurt. It felt like it wanted me to move." Jack nodded. "Because it did. The fire is alive. It listens. It waits. But it only answers those who carry its truth. You're not just a royal, Lyra. You're a flame bearer. You always were." She lowered her head. "I thought I was weak." "You were never weak," Jack replied. "You were only caged." They moved through the damaged halls, stepping over broken drones and fallen weapons. The ship's warning lights blinked, but the danger had passed. Jack guided her back to the main deck and reset the controls. The stars outside were calm again. The ship was silent. But Lyra's heart was not. It beat hard, and her thoughts raced. With memory and anger and strength she didn't yet understand. She sat near the window and looked at the stars. "They'll keep coming," she said. "They'll send more. Stronger ones, they won't stop." Jack sat across from her. "Then we don't run, we strike first." Lyra looked at him sharply. "We?" Jack smiled faintly. "You think I went through fire just to save you and leave?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Why?" "Because you're not just one girl. You're the beginning of something they fear." She held the crest disc in her hand again. The glow was stronger now. The symbols on its surface shifted as if reacting to her thoughts. "I don't even know how to fight a war," she whispered. "But you know how to survive one," Jack replied. "And that's enough to start." His voice dropped to a deep calm. "There are others. Not many, but enough. Survivors, forgotten ones, broken warriors. I've seen them. They need a reason to rise. You can be that reason." Her fingers tightened around the disc. "I want to see my people again. Not the ones who betrayed me, the ones who still believe." Jack stood and opened a side panel on the ship. Inside was a small black device, round and marked with alien runes. "Then let's give them a signal." He placed the device on the table. "This beacon will call out across 7 systems. Hidden frequencies. Only Flamebloods and old loyalists will hear it." Lyra looked at it, then back at him. "You had this all along?" "Waiting for the right hands to light it," he said. "It only activates through royal flame." She hesitated, then reached forward. Her fingertip brushed the top of the beacon. The device hummed, then flared with golden fire. A soft ring pulsed from it, invisible to most, but loud to those waiting in silence across the stars. Somewhere far away, an old soldier opened his eyes. A hidden warrior heard the pulse in his bones. A sick mother whispered to her child, "The fire lives again." Across the galaxy, people who had lost hope paused in their breath. The signal was clear. She was alive. And the fire had returned. Jack watched her carefully. "You just called every forgotten warrior back to the light." Lyra stood tall now. Her body was still sore, but her spirit no longer bent. "Then we'll gather them. We'll rebuild what they tried to destroy." Jack crossed his arms. "It won't be easy. You'll be hunted, betrayed again. Fought by those closest to you." She nodded. "Let them come. This time, I won't fall alone." She moved toward the rear cabin where her new armor was kept. Her old royal robes were gone, torn away in the arena. What waited now was different. Not gold and jewels, but black leather with crimson fire symbols. Armor once worn by her ancestors. Jack had found it, kept it, repaired it. And now she wore it. When she stepped back into the light, even the ship seemed to pause. Her eyes were steady. Her scars were visible, and the flame inside her shimmered through the symbols on her chest. "If we fight," she said, "we fight for those who were silenced, for the ones they threw into cages, for every girl they laughed at, for every voice they tried to erase." Jack drew his sword and lowered his head. "Then I follow you, Flamebearer." Lyra nodded once, not like a queen but like a warrior. One who had bled, one who had risen, one who had found purpose in the fire. The stars above Ziraean 9 glowed blue, but the world below was cracked and gray. Broken towers reached into a smoky sky, and the surface trembled from old war scars. This was not a place of life, it was a place of ghosts. Yet it was here that the fire had called them. And here they gathered. Ships arrived one by one. Old models, smuggled vessels, rebel crafts with no markings. Each carried warriors, survivors, and those who had once served the royal flame. Some were limping. Others wore chains from escaped prisons. All had eyes that remembered pain. And when they stepped off their ships and saw her alive and armored, they fell to one knee without a word. Lyra stood on the ridge with Jack at her side. Her flame blade hung at her hip. The wind pulled her cloak to the side. revealing the crest of her bloodline burned into the armor. She didn't speak right away. She watched the crowd form. Men, women, aliens, machines with broken voice chips. They came not for reward, but because they had nothing left but belief. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear. I was thrown into a pit and left to die. They called it justice. They called it order, but it was fear. They feared what we. Remember, they feared what we are. She stepped forward. But I am still here, and so are you. And we are not broken anymore. The crowd rose together. Not with cheers, not with flags, but with silence. A silence that meant they were ready. Not for war, but for truth. Jack nodded. He had seen empires rise and fall. But never had he seen this. A fire built not on revenge, but on purpose. They trained for days in the ruins. Jack taught them to fight with fire, to wield weapons old and new. Lyra trained beside them. She didn't sit on a throne or give orders from above. She bled again, this time in practice. She fought shoulder to shoulder. And every day, the fire grew stronger around her. One night, while the others rested, Jack found her sitting beside a cracked wall. She held the beacon in her hand, watching it pulse. "You still doubt yourself?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I don't know how to lead them into battle. What if I fail again?" Jack sat beside her. "Then we fall together. And if we stand, we stand together too." She looked at him. Her voice was soft. "Why do you believe in me so much?" Jack stared at the stars. "Because when I first walked through fire, I was alone. I thought that was strength. But now I see real strength isn't walking alone. It's carrying someone with you." Her eyes burned, not from pain but from truth. She placed her hand on the beacon, then on the ground. "Then we fight. Not to rule, but to free." Jack nodded. "We fight to stop the laughing. To silence the ones who enjoyed your screams." The call to battle came faster than expected. The Vernax fleet had found them. Dozens of ships. Heavy guns. Elite soldiers. They didn't come to talk. They came to erase. To finish what they had started in the arena. But this time, Lyra didn't stand alone. As the enemy ships entered orbit, fire lit across the rebel camp. Not panic but power. Jack stood on the front lines. Lyra stepped beside him, flames dancing at her fingertips. "You ready?" she asked. Jack smiled. "Been ready since the day I saw you crawl through blood." The first blast hit the ridge, but the fire shield held. Rebels rose with flame spears and cannons built from old tech. Fighters launched into the sky, weaving through enemy fire. Lyra raised her blade, its fire blazing gold. "For every girl they left bleeding," she shouted. "Burn them down." She led the charge, into the field, through flame and ash. Her blade cut through armor, her voice guided her people. The fire didn't just protect her now, it followed her like a storm. Jack fought beside her, calm and fast, moving like fire made flesh. The enemy tried to crush them, but every time a rebel fell, two more rose. Lyra reached the enemy command ship with a team of survivors. She kicked down the doors, dragging the traitor general to his knees. His face went pale when he saw her. "You were supposed to die," he shouted. She stepped forward, fire circling her. "You laughed as I bled," she said. "Now watch as your power burns away." She didn't kill him, not with her blade. She left him for the people to judge. Justice would come not as revenge, but as truth. She walked back to the battlefield, her armor scorched, her eyes bright, and the people followed her, not because they were forced, but because she had become the fire they needed. The battlefield was quiet now. The air was still heavy with smoke, but the fire had gone soft. It no longer raged, it glowed gently, like a resting heart. Bodies of machines and soldiers lay scattered across the gray stone. Rebels moved among them, helping the wounded, pulling their friends from rubble. But their eyes kept returning to one place, the center. Where she stood, Lyra had not taken off her armor. Her blade still burned low at her side. Blood stained her arms, but she did not tremble. She looked around slowly, her chest rising with slow, steady breaths. She had not won because of strength. She had won because she remembered who she was. Not a royal, not a prisoner, but the voice of a people who had been silent too long. Jack stepped up beside her. His face was tired, his shoulder was bruised, but he still smiled the same calm smile. "It's done," he said, "for now." She turned her eyes to him. "It's never really done, is it?" He shook his head. "No, but the worst part is over. You lit the fire. Now they'll carry it." Rebel fighters and flame-bearers gathered at the center. Some limped. Some leaned on others, but they stood tall. Lyra raised her hand slowly. "We were broken," she said. "We were scattered, but today we remembered. They thought we would die with silence in our mouths. Instead, we stood with fire in our hearts." A cheer rose, not loud, but deep. The kind that came from the soul. Many of them had lost families, homes, names, but now they had something stronger: purpose, unity. A leader who had walked through blood and fire and kept walking. Not to save herself, but to pull them all out of the dark. Jack stayed quiet as the crowd honored her. He didn't want the praise. He had seen too much to enjoy it. But when Lyra turned to him and placed her hand on his shoulder, he looked at her. "You're part of this now," she said. "You didn't just save me. You saved what I could have become." He nodded once. "You would have risen with or without me," she smiled gently. "Maybe, but I would have risen alone." And that, they both knew, was the difference. The fire burned brighter when it was shared. They rebuilt slowly. The ruins of Zirion 9 became more than ash and stone. It became a home. Not of kings or empires, but of fighters, workers, children. Lyra didn't sit on a throne. She sat among them, taught them, trained beside them, ate with them, fought for them. And they called her not queen, but flame-bearer. One night, long after the sky had cleared and the fires had calmed, Jack stood at the edge of the rebuilt outpost. He looked up at the stars, quiet. Lyra walked up beside him, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders. "You thinking of leaving?" she asked. Jack gave a small smile. "I always think about it, but I never do." She laughed once. "You don't talk much about your past." He shrugged. "Not much to say. I've seen worlds burn, seen leaders betray, seen people laugh as others bled. I walked away from most of it." She studied his face. "So why didn't you walk away from me?" Jack looked at her now, really looked. "Because you didn't give up. Even when they left you in the dirt. Even when they laughed. You crawled forward. That's the kind of fire I couldn't walk away from." She reached for his hand and took it. Not as a ruler, not as a savior. Just as someone who understood pain. Someone who had stood in fire and come out stronger. And Jack for once didn't pull away. The stars above burned soft. The world below was quiet. And for the first time in years, both of them felt peace. Later, the stories would spread about the girl they laughed at. The one who bled in the arena while the rich cheered. The one who was supposed to die in front of beasts, but didn't, because a human walked through fire, not to be a hero, but to be her shield. They said she rose with fire in her hand, that she carried it across the stars, that those who once mocked her now feared her name. But the people closest to her knew the truth. She never wanted revenge. She only wanted them to stop laughing at the suffering. To start seeing the ones they stepped on. To feel what she had felt in that pit, and she had made them feel it, not with hate, but with fire. That lit the way.